Hello and welcome to Super Switch Heads, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. It's episode 265, and my name is Patrick Nisley.
My name is Summer Rain.
My name is David Howe, and boy, oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we have a pair of very special guests joining on today's episode. We have the wonderful Katie Shesko and CelloKat joining on the episode today. How y'all doing?
Great, how are you?
So good. Thanks for having
Very
us.
Y'all are here to talk with us about Nintendo being aggressive with its IP. Nintendo sending out DMCA letters and to fan work, and especially in particular, sheet music is going to be sort of our launching point for this discussion, but it's been a lot lately. So we're going to dig into why Nintendo has this weird relationship with its fans doing work with their IP. We'll save all that for the main topic. We got a lot of news as well. We're going to be talking about Luigi's Mansion 2 came out. There was a shareholder, the annual shareholder meeting at Nintendo. SGDQ is underway. We got a lot more stuff. We'll get into all that. But before that, how is everybody doing? How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been a good week. I feel like I can finally relax a little bit. Last week was a very difficult, strenuous week for me in a lot of ways, but also a good week with a lot of highs. We did the final Good Fight show this past Thursday, which was just a magical time. If you guys didn't know, I've been doing a comedy show in Austin pretty much weekly for 10 years, and it was like our final show last week. And so it was very emotional, but it was very fun. Also, the energy was crazy. It was like sold out. It was really cool to see so many like friends and people that have been on the show over the years. But I am just pleased as punch that thing is dead. I don't got. I just like this week. I was just like, I don't have to book a show this week. Oh my god, it just feels really nice. I mean, it was amazing while it lasted, you know. But for now, I have no regrets as far as that's concerned. I've been mostly relaxing. I'm taking like most of the week off of work this week. I'm heading out actually tomorrow to New York City on a plane to hang out with some friends in New York. So using up the rest of my PTO. I'm excited about that.
Are you going to make the pilgrimage to the Nintendo shop?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
A hundo P. Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend used to live in Brooklyn and now lives in Manhattan. So it's like, you know, it's a tiny island, just a little jaunt over there, I'm sure. It's not too big of a deal.
Surely. My week was mostly chill. I am unfortunately spending too much time playing Final Fantasy 14 now that I'm like getting into it and I have friends that I'm playing with. But otherwise, I went to the Pride Parade in Chicago yesterday for the first time, or my first time going to like a Pride Parade in a bigger city. And I knew it was going to be big. Nothing could have prepared me for like that level of energy and positivity, but also in small world at the same time. I actually ran into somebody that I was involved in a lot of like college conferences with when I was an undergrad, and we haven't seen each other since then. And it was really cool to reconnect, and ran into people I went to high school with. And that's a huge deal because my high school class was 50 people. So wow. In a huge city like Chicago, that's kind of a big deal. So it was really special for that reason too. And otherwise, now I'm just getting ready to also take a vacation this week, going to Orlando, not to go to parks, but to have my Fire Emblem festivities for a whole weekend. So I can't wait to report on that.
Very cool.
I'm doing pretty good. This past week, my wife was out of town for a lot of it. Kudos to all the single parents out there. I do it for a week and I'm like, oh my God, I'm a mess. And they have to do it all the time. So it always reminds me how nice it is to have somebody to tag in and out. We did that game jam I talked about last week. And I think I was a little bit like, I had been staying up late working on that. And so that was good, but we're doing another one now. Me and my kid, I think it's just the season for it, the summer. We liked the game that we made, so we're kind of making a sequel to it.
Already,
expanding on it. Yeah, already.
The people demanded it, you know.
And
it's just really quick to jump into another.
Needed a supply. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so things have been like weirdly busy and but also like not super productive for my own indie game, but I kind of knew that's just kind of how the summer goes, and also this particular phase of it. So, but things are good generally.
It's not too late to rewrite your entire game in Godot and have Magnus be your second programmer.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that sounds great. What about y'all, Katie and CelloKat? How have y'all been doing recently?
Oh my gosh, it's been a whirlwind week because I flew out to Utah. I'm from Pittsburgh, flew in Thursday, and immediately we drove up to Idaho for the Mystic Realms Fantasy Fair we were both performing at.
Wow.
And we're here for 2 days. And then Wednesday morning, we have a flight out to Los Angeles to go to Anime Expo because Kat has 2 shows out there.
Wow.
I'm really excited
Yes.
to get to play the main AX Crossing stage this year at Anime Expo. It's a really cool opportunity for me. Probably the biggest show of my career. So I'm not nervous. And I'm so grateful that Katie's coming with me to be a moral, technical support. Get yourself a friend that will fly across the country to come hang out with you.
And book gigs last minute.
Yeah.
Very good.
Because what we booked Mystic Realms, like 3 weeks ago.
I know. Yeah. So it's been real fun.
That
So
is
yeah.
so cool. What an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
But like also, did you have a single come out today? Or
Oh, yeah. That happened too. Came home from the Mystic Realms Fantasy Fair last night and then edited a video to post on YouTube this morning.
Highly recommend checking it out because CelloKat's vocals are pretty sexy in this song.
Oh,
you need to hear
There's some
it.
Japanese rap
Yeah.
that I worked very hard on.
Very nice. Well, our last week's episode was about the end of consoles and sort of the games that come out at the end of their life cycles. And we got some really great comments and discussion over on YouTube. We got a new commenter. I want to give a shout out to Viking Lord Sean, who said that they only recently found the podcast, but it's become one of their favorite gaming podcasts. And also talked about how it's a great time to be a Nintendo fan, which I think is one of the reasons we kept doing the podcast.
Ironic
and
with this
started
episode we chose.
And they're also excited about the upcoming Zelda game and finally getting, a Zelda as the protagonist. Over on our Discord, I want to shout out Medium Quality, who said that Robert Segovia made an interesting point about the longer console lifespans being the new normal. And then Cool Uncle Vince and Carosetta. Cool Uncle Vince was talking kind of reflecting on the end of all the console life cycle games that we had talked about and some other comments, but piggybacking on the N64 one, Carosetta talked about working at Target at that time in like 99, 2000, and no one really buying N64 games because PlayStation was winning with better or bigger library and less expensive games, which kind of led into a discussion about the Dreamcast, incidentally.
All good.
Involving
I'll hijack any conversation to talk about the Dreamcast.
So shout outs to Cena, Ty Typos, B Campbell for that discussion. And over on Instagram, shout out to Sprowlex too, who said, fortunately, Bomberman 64 was not a Japan only release. That they still have the cart and the music from that slaps. And I saw Bomberman 64 being played today in GDQ, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But if you too want to be shouted out, we love hearing from our listeners and viewers. So please leave a comment on the YouTube channel or send us a note or join the Discord that we have to come be part of the conversation about the episodes over there. It's always fun to see what people have to say when the episodes come out. We also have a Patreon. Appreciate all our patrons. And if you want to support the show, that's a great way to do it. And while you're watching the video version on YouTube, make sure you hit like and subscribe. And we'll talk about the news for the week. So first up is that Luigi's Mansion 2 HD came out for the Switch. I don't really know that I've heard anybody that's playing it, but it sounds like it's pretty decent. I think Jordan's comment and was pretty spot on where he's like, it's a good game, but I've already played it. I don't know that the HD is doing that much for it, right? I plan on playing this at some point, but
I will say to the game's credit, and this isn't something I really realized until I was watching reviews or reading reviews for the game, is that it is quite a bit of a glow up than it seems at first, like you watch the trailer for it and you're like, that doesn't look as good as Luigi's Mansion 3. And so you're like, it's probably just upscaled 3DS or whatever. But they did put a lot of work into this. And the developer which Nintendo's really cagey about who develops their games when it's not like an in-house developer. This is Tantalus Software, who also did the Skyward Sword remake as well. They put a lot of work into this, and there's a lot of new textures and there's a lot of new polygons and stuff like that. So it's not just an upscale, even if I think people like went into the code and found that it still has data for like Street Pass in it and, and like a lot of old, dual screen specific code that is not needed on the Switch. So yeah, it's definitely a port, but I do think that they should have some credit for making it look a little bit better.
Is anyone here playing it?
I didn't even know it was coming out. I
played the first.
Let's go.
I played the original one, and that was a great game. I think that was on GameCube. Oh man, many hours with me and my siblings playing Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube.
It's getting good reviews, and everybody's saying it's a really decent port of the game. I just think it's $60, and the game was $40 when it first came out, and I think that it was a big missed opportunity. I think if this had come out with Luigi's Mansion 1, which also came out for the 3DS, so if they had kind of updated both of them, put them out in a pack, I think I would have snapped this up like that.
How much was...
For just the sequel, that's a hard ask.
Pikmin 1 and 2, when it came out as an upgraded pack, how much was it? Wasn't it 50?
I think it was 40 each or 60 if you buy both.
Oh, really? Okay. Still a better deal than this. Okay.
Yeah, it was a better deal than this.
Okay.
But it was, I don't
all.
remember. It was something like what David said, where if
Okay.
you buy both,
Yeah.
is it like $10 cheaper or something?
Yeah. Okay.
I have no idea how Nintendo fucking prices their stuff, man. It's confusing.
We'll move along to Nintendo has held their annual shareholder meeting. As far as I could tell at the time of recording, they have not translated the Q&A into English yet, but that doesn't mean there aren't ways to, there aren't people already talking about what they said in English speaking areas. So there's some translation done, just through machine translation and that sort of thing. A few things of note that have come out, and are making the headlines are that in particular, there was a question about how to prevent or make sure that enough people could get their hands on the successor to the Switch, what we hope will be called the Super Switch. It just sounds like they plan on having a lot of them at launch. That is the answer to that question. Obviously, like Nintendo or any corporation does and all these sort of things, it's a lot of corporate speak and of dodging of all these questions. But it sounds like their goal is to just make enough units to meet demand. Hopefully that is the case whenever this happens, so we aren't all fighting people for things on the shelves. I also saw some people say that there's some reconfirmation, not that we need reconfirmation of things, but that the Nintendo account will continue. The account you have on your Switch will be the same account you have on this system, which obviously makes us all still hope for that sort of backwards compatibility. We'll see on that one, though. And then I also saw that they were asked about leaks because of the Google report that came out. Or not Google, it was like that independent report about Google stuff and that included Nintendo leak. And it sounds like, their answer was that they are working to weed out this sort of thing. And maybe, I don't know if this relates to Pioro, that leak or not, but it sure feels like it could. The Google report probably doesn't, but
if I was a shareholder and I was allowed to ask a question, I sure as hell would be asking about Pioro and the leaks, right? I'd be like, what the hell are you going to be doing about this? You know? Because there was other news recently too that I think it was Kadokawa, the parent company of FromSoft, and there was a big data breach there, and so I think it's like these Japanese companies take this very seriously, and I think that it's important to plug the leaks, until the next one gets found out.
Yeah, and then of note to our discussion today was that somebody asked about, and I don't have the question in front of me because this is one of those ones that wasn't brought up, but somebody asked about music, Nintendo's music. Soundtracks used to be distributed, and people, have you considered using a music subscription service for your soundtracks? And their answer is vague and poor, which is we know people like our music, and we want people to have our music or something like that. Then
give us a way to have it.
Look, guys, guys, if you want to listen to Nintendo music, you take your Joy-Cons off your Switch, put your Switch in your bag, put wired headphones into it, and listen to the Smash music player. Okay, it's got 1,000 songs. It's all you need.
Very intuitive way to move through them. Yeah.
Actually, you could do Bluetooth.
Well, no, I mean, I was about to say they finally gave us Bluetooth. What was it, 2 years ago?
Yeah, never mind. I take back my sarcasm. That is a serious thing. There was one more thing that I've seen making the rounds at this shareholder meeting, and that was Miyamoto specifically being asked about his retirement plans and stuff like that. And I think that he made some, I don't have his words on hand. This is just kind of off the dome piece, but I know that he said basically like a lot of the people that he had been training and put his faith into are now getting pretty old themselves. And so like he's got this he's like the new young generation that's coming up at Nintendo are all superstars. And he was like really rizzing them up and just talking about how cool the next gen of Nintendo leadership is going to be. And so, obviously that's the kind of stuff you want to say to your shareholders, but he was basically like, look guys, I'm still working on Pikmin Bloom. So if you want a game that has my touch on it, go play that, which I thought was pretty funny.
Is anyone here playing Pikmin Bloom? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was for a while, and then I stopped walking. It's too hot out. And then, the only other thing that I saw was, I think, what Miyamoto and Furukawa make was revealed as their like yearly salaries, which I found interesting. I think it was Miyamoto makes like $1.2 million around or something like that a year, or maybe it's a little bit higher than that. And then Furukawa makes over roughly $2 million a year as the president of Nintendo. And so I found that kind of interesting to look at in perspective, because it's a lot of money, but it's also Miyamoto's like in his 70s and he's been at the company for like 40 years. So it's like definitely feels earned, right? And then it's also when you kind of compare that to a lot of these Western video game companies and big AAA studios and see what those CEOs make, it definitely is like a lot less. And we shouldn't be taking every lesson from Japanese business because there's a lot of toxicity in the Japanese business world. But I think there are little things here and there, especially in entertainment sectors, that are important things that I think people should look at. And Nintendo's kind of always been a leader in that front, I believe.
If and when the English translation comes out and there's more, we'll talk about it. But I think that these things usually are pretty sidestepping on all these questions. So we can move along. Next up then is a little bit of a follow-up on the news surrounding Nintendo Live 2024, which was canceled in person and recorded and broadcast very awkwardly on YouTube and so forth. The live event was canceled because of bomb threats. And I think we also talked about recently that somebody had been apprehended for that. And now it turns out that this individual, which is like a 27-year-old man in Japan who sent these 39 bomb threats to Nintendo, appeared at court and admitted to the charges, and also said that the more I lost, and this is in Splatoon 3, the more frustrated I would become. And so apparently they sent bomb threats to Nintendo because of losing in Splatoon.
You think we're all not frustrated when we lose in Splatoon? That we're not sending death threats?
Yeah. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
It's Splatoon?
I know.
I think of a lot of other games where like I would be a lot more frustrated.
Those 3-minute rounds are too long. I invested so much time.
Exactly right. They're 3-minute matches. That's like the whole point. Is you can't get too mad about it.
Never change. Unless you're doing bomb threats, then change. Be a better person.
For what it's worth, it sounds like they're seeking a 1-year prison sentence against this person. We'll see what happens. I don't know if we'll follow up on this one or not. But we'll move along to some old news that's kind of making the rounds now, which is some 1980s court documents from a case involving Universal suing Nintendo about Donkey Kong being similar to King Kong. Apparently in that court case, there were some notes from Nintendo that came out about possible names for Donkey Kong. And I think this was unearthed a couple of years ago, but for whatever reason has been brought back up. And it's not something I had seen. And I thought that's pretty funny because so there's like a big list of names that they were thinking of. And of note is Funky Kong was on there. So the first appearance of Funky Kong actually predates the original Donkey. It's pretty canon. There are some other good ones on here though. Kong the Kong is on here, which is ridiculous. And Kong Dong is on here as well. Which, would have been
Patrick, you sounded so embarrassed to say that. You
Say it with your full chest, man.
I think I was.
Kong Dong. That's how you have to say it. Some people say we dodged a bullet with Kong Dong. I think that we were struck with a massive bullet with Donkey Kong. Kong Dong makes so much more sense. Rolls off the tongue. I think we would have destigmatized Dong early on, and Patrick would have had a lot easier time.
That's true. It might have made Dong not be. I don't know.
No, yeah, this is interesting stuff. It is a weird name, Donkey Kong. No one really. We all just accept it, but it's very strange that he's got donkey in his name in the first place.
Yeah. Also, Kong Boy is on here, which I think would have been funny too.
I think Funky Kong would have been totally apt and normal. And I think if it had been Funky Kong Country and it was all Funky Kong the whole time, I think that would have been really great.
The universe we could have had. You're right.
Oh boy, there's also Big Kong, and if they had just combined some of these, like Big Kong Dong,
Big Dong Kong.
Let's go. Let's go.
You said that one much more confidently.
Yeah. He's getting better.
Yeah.
I'm working through my.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, we can move on to talking about some non-Nintendo stuff now for the rest of this. We're going to move on to SGDQ is underway. So that is Summer Games Done Quick. Games Done Quick being the twice a year event for speedrunning community to raise money for charity. And it's always a lot of fun to watch all of the streams of people playing through these games and speedrunning them. I've only gotten a chance to watch a little bit today, including some Kirby Crystal Shards and Bomberman 64. For some reason, I feel like I caught 3 Nintendo 64 titles.
It was the block.
Was a block or something.
Yeah.
Earlier this afternoon, but it is going to be going on through the end of the week. So if you were listening to this at release, you've got a couple days to check it out. It just started today. I think the day we're recording.
It's Sunday. So it goes Sunday to Sunday, basically. So I think it'll end late Saturday or early Sunday.
Nice. And have you all watched any of this, or is anybody
Yeah, I have watched a little bit, not a ton, but I know Katie, you're a speedrunner. And
I am a speedrunner.
You were saying earlier that you actually went to AGDQ earlier this year.
I did. I went to AGDQ because it was in Pittsburgh. So it was like literally my backyard. And it was great because like I got to meet all of my speedrunning friends that I've only known on the internet.
Yeah.
So a lot of them came into town. So it was like, oh, I got to see you in person. I now know what you look like.
How long were you there? Did you just go for like a day? Or?
Oh, no, I went the whole week.
Wow.
And my kids even got to go because it was like the coldest week in Pittsburgh. So they got a couple of extra like online days. And I was like, well, I already bought the pass and like they already had their passes. So they got to come a couple of extra days too. But nice. Yeah, it was a ton of fun. It was like my first in-person one. I've been wanting to go. I was going to go in 2020 and then, didn't get to go in 2020. But when it was in my backyard, I was like, okay, I have no excuse not to go. And I even made the highlight reel at the end because I took my flute and I played in the lobby. So I have like my 3 seconds of fame of me playing my flute at GDQ.
Grind never ends.
No.
What do you speedrun?
I speedrun Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Oh, very cool.
Ooh.
Yeah. I do 100%. And right now I'm working on all Kilton medals. And my personal goal is to get on a leaderboard this year so I can be an official speedrunner.
Man, 100% Breath of the Wild. That's a pretty intense speedrun. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the other?
All Kilton medals. So that's where you have to beat Ganon and then you defeat all the Taluses, the Hinoxes, and the Moldugas. And then when you do that, Kilton gives you a little medal. So it's all.
I did not know that. I've never done that, so yeah.
Oh, I've done it in a sub 2 hour. Blah, blah, blah. No. Not really, no. And then last question. Sorry, I know this isn't an interview about speedrunning, but would you recommend going in person? Because I've always wanted to go myself.
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. I mean, like, because the event room's always open. There's people walking around all the time. And I think like the most fun was like they usually have like a big room set up with like consoles and TVs, and like you can check stuff out. So like I would bring my Switch, and I think the one day instead of carrying my dock with me, I checked out a dock. And like me and my friend, he was helping me with some of the speedrunning tricks for Breath of the Wild because he's amazing. He does OOT and Breath of the Wild. So like he was helping me with some of my stuff, and we were doing it in person. But like they have TVs and computers, and like I know some of the OOT players will come and they'll set up like a beta quest or like a rando, and like you just kind of pop in and you work on the rando a little bit and see how far they can get throughout the week. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So like even if you're not interested in whatever game is being run, there's panels, there's people walking around, and you can just sit and play games with your friends, and it's a great time. It's a great time.
Sold.
Do it. Do it. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Additionally, there's also a Humboldt bundle currently, like a bundle that's live with for GDQ this year, and it's really good. Actually, it's for like $20. You get Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2. That's hard to say. Penny's Big Breakaway, which honestly is one of my favorite games of the year, and a couple others as well, including like Arzette, that game that's kind of like the spiritual sequel to the Zelda CEI games. So yeah, so there's some pretty cool stuff in there. Check that out. We are not affiliated with Humble,
but we could be. Humble,
but we could be. I think we're an IGN podcast now.
Well, we'll move on to some Sega Crazy Taxi reboot news. So apparently Sega has revealed a bit of information about the Crazy Taxi reboot. We still don't have any like visuals or anything or any thing like that, but they have announced that it is going to be an open world, massively multiplayer AAA game. And I don't know how to feel about that, y'all. That's not what comes to mind when you think of Crazy Taxi. I don't know what do we think about that?
Every game has to be open world, and every game has to be a massive multiplayer online experience. That's what this sounds like to me.
Yeah, you play Final Fantasy 14 for 1 week, and now everything's got to be MMO.
And Breath of the Wild, right? You played Breath of the Wild and Final Fantasy 14. You're like, oh, Crazy Taxi could be this.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think this is just giving me flashes of, when Sega was talking about their like super game that they were making, and I wonder if it's this, or I wonder if this is part of it, maybe, because I've also heard something about a Jet Set Radio game that they're working on, that there's like a free to play version of that they're making, and then like a remake in addition to that. So I don't know. Sega's trying a lot of stuff right now, and they did a lot of restructuring in like Europe and elsewhere, and I think they're didn't do great as far as like return this last year because of that. So this is a big gamble for them. I think they're going really headfirst into a lot of development, and I hope this works out, but it sounds weird.
Yeah, it sounds weird. I think that's what it just doesn't sound right. We'll see, it could be a great open world, massively multiplayer AAA game, but I guess we'll hold our judgment till we hear more.
You sounded less confident saying that than when you said Kong Dong.
Okay.
Watch, this is going to be the only game we talk about for 10 years. It's going to prove us all wrong. Just like Final Fantasy 14 did, and just like Breath of the Wild did. It's going to revolutionize. No.
May well. But we will move on to some Xbox news. Came out that you are now or soon going to be able to play Xbox games through your Amazon Fire TV stick. If you have one, all you need is that and the app and controller, and you can play so long as you have the Game Pass, whatever Game Pass tier it is for this. Which I feel like this is the first time we're actually seeing this discussion that Microsoft and Xbox has been having about putting their games and Game Pass on everything or on other screens. This is it. Your Amazon Fire TV. I don't know. I guess it's going to be, cloud streaming. And I don't know. I don't know who this is for, but what do y'all think? Do you think this is the first of something, or is this them testing stuff like this? Is Amazon the only place that they're going to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I could see them doing this a lot more. I could see this on Roku and all the little boxes, I think it's good. I mean, if they've got the infrastructure for it, I mean, it makes sense. This is what they've been working towards. So I'm not like mad about it. I'm sure there are some people that are like, oh, this is another nail in the coffin of physical media and stuff like that. And it's like, I guess so. But I mean, this is, they've been building up this infrastructure for a long time. So I think this was good for me.
I want it to be good eventually, because where I'm at with this is I bought a backbone for my phone specifically so I could do cloud gaming with Game Pass on my phone, and I have fiber internet. And it's still having a hard time with most games that I want to play. I can get by with turn-based things, but I was trying to play something like Celeste. Not going to happen.
Yeah,
in that format, not until the infrastructure gets better.
Yeah, I think it's funny that Microsoft is the biggest company that is running one of these cloud services with their Azure,
right?
But they're kind of the worst out of all of them. I think Stadia had better connection, and then and also GeForce Now, Nvidia's thing, I hear is actually really good. As far as the game streaming platforms, that's the best one. But Microsoft is the one that's pushing it the hardest, so hopefully they can kind of match some of the quality levels of these other streamers at some point.
And then our last bit of news here is that Forza Horizon 4 is going to be delisted from digital stores, and that is from the, Xbox, Microsoft stores and Steam at the end of the year. So sometime in mid-December, you'll no longer be able to buy this. I think they've done this with the previous Forza games or this franchise. So it's somewhat not of a surprise, but it's always just wild and weird to me when this happens, when it's announced that a game is just going to poof, not be available anymore. I don't know what to make of it, but like I said, I think they do this with this series for some reason.
It's racing games. It's the car licenses,
Is that actually it?
Yeah. Gran Turismo.
Licenses?
Many Gran Turismo games have been delisted. A lot of them were before digital games, so it's just they just didn't sell any more copies in stores or whatever, right? But now that we're in this digital era, it's every time there's a new car game that comes out, it's the licenses only last for so long because manufacturers are pretty stingy with that. So that's a big part of this. I think it's that's also kind of why they make so many of these games, right? Is because you don't want to just make one, because then it's sections of your game have to kind of leave, right? You can't really make a forever car game for this reason. So it kind of falls into these sort of semi-regular release cadences for these Forza games. But now is the time to go get it. I think it's heavily discounted because it is being delisted. So the Horizon games are really fun.
They are.
And that is going to do it for our news roundup for this week. We are going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking with Katie and CelloKat all about Nintendo's sending out their lawyers to shut down fan-run things. We are back, and this week we are talking about Nintendo's strained relationship with its fans, making and creating and using the IP that they own. So, there's been a lot of news items recently, especially about Nintendo sending out DMCA letters and shutting down, whether it's fan games, fan sites, music, all sorts of things. And so we have a couple of wonderful guests here today who are involved in some of those communities. And we're going to dig into that whole conversation. First up, maybe Katie and CelloKat, maybe y'all can introduce yourselves and talk about your backgrounds and what you do in particular in relation to this topic.
So I'm CelloKat. I make anime and video game covers for the internet. I also play live at anime pop culture cons across the country. And I've been publishing my sheet music through musicnotes.com since 2020. I play the cello, CelloKat. And I was shocker.
I play the cat.
Actually, yeah. When I started making video covers. I started making covers in 2017, and I was doing pop and rock stuff because I also own a live event company providing live music for weddings and events and things like that. Just trying to find a way to make it as a musician in this world. You kind of have to do a lot of things. And so I started making covers kind of for fun and also just to kind of like learn some music tech stuff. And also I went to a school that was kind of far away from my friends and family. And I was like, look at what I'm doing. I can play the cello good and stuff, sort of, And I was doing all the stuff that I would like do to promote myself to play at events. So mostly pop and rock. And then 2020 happened. And my husband is like, he'd been saying the whole time, you should do video game and anime stuff because that's what you love. And I'm from Utah, and Lindsay Sterling is also from Utah, and she's incredible and amazing. But I was just like so worried, I guess, about being like, oh, you're trying to be Lindsay Sterling. Cause like everyone says that to anybody here that is like, tries to do anything outside the beaten path. It's kind of like not a very positive vibe sometimes from the classical music, community. But 2020 happened and I started making anime video game stuff, and it was so fun. And I started to realize that there was kind of like this hole for cello specifically. There's a lot of stuff out there for more popular instruments. You can get stuff in treble clef. And you can get some more like advanced cello stuff. But I felt like there wasn't a lot written specifically for, like, everything that I found was written for the cello to try to make it sound like the violin or to make it sound like really high, like get up into those like crazy registers. There was nothing that took these songs and made them showcase the instrument, if that makes sense. And so that kind of became my personal mission, was to take these songs that I grew up listening to and these games and this pop culture, and try to find ways that people that play my instrument could not only access them in a way that was playable, but showcased the instrument that we had. And so I was really excited when Music Notes reached out to me and asked me to become a signature artist and publish my sheet music with them, because that was such a big part of my mission, which was providing an accessibility to this music to cellists.
That's so cool that they reached out to you. I didn't realize that part. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think I got lucky. It was right at that time where they were really like trying to get more sheet music for that genre. During the pandemic, everyone was at home. There was that's how I met Katie, was through an online course that I bought and took, and it was booming. Everyone was at home. So we all took up our hobbies in a way, right? And we all wanted to learn stuff, and we wanted to do stuff with our time that wasn't just go to work every day or commute to work every day, right? And so I think they had a boom of sheet music sales in that niche. And so they were looking for more people to provide that product for them.
Katie, what about you?
I have a very long history. Like I said, I was the oldest of 4 kids. We all grew up playing games. I had a Sega Genesis. I remember being like 5 on a Sega Genesis playing like the Aladdin game, which I still never beat. And that's like my greatest, like, I think about that every so often. Like I never beat that Aladdin game on Sega. It was so hard. But then we had like the N64 and the GameCube. So I grew up playing like Zelda and Wind Waker. Like I beat Wind Waker the first time. That was like my first Zelda game that I beat. And so gaming was like always part of my family, my culture, my identity. I loved gaming, and that's what we did as siblings. Like you got 3 younger siblings. We were always playing Mario Party, and I get very competitive even to this day with Mario Party. But I always wanted to be a flute player. But to spare the long backstory, I didn't go to music school. I actually have a degree in industrial engineering because no one really believed that music was a career. They're like, oh, just keep music as a hobby. Get an engineering degree, get a good job, and you can do music on the side. Well, I got pregnant the month after graduation, which was at the end of 2010, which was the height of the recession. So not only were there really no engineering jobs where I lived, and I was married at the time, no one was going to hire a pregnant woman. So I did the stay-at-home mom thing, blah, 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 lived about 3 lifetimes in that point. But around, like I said, I'll spare the backstory, but around, I think it was like the end of 2018, I looked at my husband and I was like, I really think I want to give this music thing a go. And he's like, I've been waiting years for you to say that to me. So I joined the course that Kat ended up joining. And that was kind of the push to get me into starting to release. And I've always wanted to do video game covers because I've always loved video game music. Mm-hmm. And I've started watching anime. So I've added anime to the stuff. But that's always what I wanted to do. And there wasn't a whole lot of flute being used. You would hear it here and there. And like Zelda did some stuff with like the ocarina, like flute adjacent stuff, but there wasn't flute. And I was like, well, they're not going to put flute in and I'm just going to do my own version with flute. Mm-hmm. So I actually do this with my husband. He helps me arrange and he helps me produce and stuff. And it's kind of like our little family thing that we do together. But yeah, so I do flute and I do video game and anime covers. I also appear at conventions around the country, and I stream on Twitch the speedrunning because even though I love music, like my core is I'm a gamer. So I've gotten back to my roots of gaming. My kids game, the whole family games. So that's kind of how I got into it. But I actually reached out to Music Notes and I was like, hey, like I have some cool flute stuff that I can give you. And like I had arranged a couple of flute choir, which if you don't know what a flute choir is, like there's more than just this flute that you think of. There's alto flutes and bass flutes and piccolos and contrabasses. And I've arranged a couple for them. And I was like, hey, I know that there's people out there that want this. So they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And that's how I got involved with Music Notes. And I started releasing my versions too. And I try to put spins on it. So it's not always just a straight arrangement, but it's, a little fun flavor that makes the flute fun and unique. So that's how I got involved with Music Notes. I was just like, hey, you should let me send you stuff to sell. And they're like, okay. So that's how I got involved with that.
And, we talked a little bit, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we did a news story on the DMCA request from Nintendo for Music Notes. But if you could just kind of catch us up a little bit on what happened there and then also maybe why that came as a shock whenever that did happen.
Well, I think like the biggest thing was like, it just kind of came out of nowhere. I think we all got the same email. It's just like, hey, Nintendo essentially is like, don't want us selling this. And so we have to take all of your stuff down and anything that's already sold, you'll be paid for. But like going forward, you guys can't do arrangements. And
there was the other part of it too that I thought was really interesting was that they were just like, there was kind of an addendum at the end of the email that was, and if you know of your arrangements being sold anywhere online elsewhere, because, we sign exclusivity contracts with Music Notes, but, people pirate stuff and people, whatever they're going to do, have their own websites and they get their own licenses elsewhere for some things. But they're like, if you know of your stuff being sold anywhere else, you would do well to make sure that doesn't happen because Nintendo has let us know they will be very aggressive. And that also was just like, because, I think Katie probably agrees with me. We feel like the little guys. We are online musicians, the sheet music sales, even so like the course that we took together is from Taylor Davis, which I think she has like 3 million subscribers on YouTube. She's definitely full-time. She's incredible. She's amazing. She's so successful. She kind of does a breakdown in that course and not to like give away anything, but she shared like where a lot of her income comes from. And it's not sheet music. She says sheet music is for the fans. It's a service for people in a way. It's not what's taking us to the bank. Like we're not paying our mortgages with sheet music sales for covers.
I think I've made less than $100 in the 4 years that I've been doing this. And it's mostly just been like, hey, I can't find this arrangement anywhere, and I see that you have an arrangement, so I want it. So I've had a lot of people ask me specifically for Life Sent On, which I've arranged for 2 flutes, because there's not a lot of people that have that out there. So like I sold quite a bit of that. And Animal Crossing. People really liked Animal Crossing.
Yeah, that one did really well for
that
me
one did
too.
really well. I think everyone just loved that. And there were just so many unique arrangements out there. So like that one did really well. But again, those are both Nintendo.
Well, it was also what we all did during 2020.
Oh my gosh.
We all played Animal Crossing.
It really did have a moment, didn't it?
It had its moment.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's not flute and cello arrangements out there officially from Nintendo, but are there even really much official Nintendo or video game music in general?
The only company that I know, and I don't remember the name of the company, but the company that puts out Genshin Impact is the only company that I know allows you to, like, they will send you their sheet music. They will send you their orchestral arrangements and allow you to perform them. And I think that goes for all of it. They let you use their art and their and everything. There's some stipulations to it. But I think as far as like, especially Nintendo, like I can't think of a place that I could go buy cello specific with bowings and dynamics and, articulations and things like that. Maybe there's piano reductions
there might
somewhere.
Be some piano. I know Square Enix has like for Nier Automata, because I have like their piano reduction book that I've like used to help inform some of my arrangements. And I know CD Projekt Red, the studio that did Witcher 3, is usually really cool about like fans creating stuff. Like I don't even think you have to buy a license if you want to cover their songs, because they just don't care. They're just like, if you want to cover it, great, go for it, like have fun. Because I know like they were trying to find covers, because I did an arrangement. I did 3 songs called the Novigrad set, which is songs you would find in Novigrad. And they're like, we can't really find licenses. Like, we don't even know who to contact. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they just don't care. Like, they're not going to come after me because I did that. So, because they appreciate what the fans are doing. They appreciate what's being done to keep the spirit and the game alive.
It's part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, part of the ecosystem. Because, like, I mean, I've had people who are like, wow, I've never heard of this game before, but now I've heard your song, so I want to go check out the music. I want to go check out the game. So some companies are, but Nintendo has been notorious about not like giving away anything at all.
It's a shame too, because I feel like there's a huge momentum for video game music right now, more than there ever has been. And it's, it's the pop culture zeitgeist for video game music is at an all-time high. The generation of kids that were raised on it are now aspiring musicians or full-time musicians doing this for a living. And so it's really odd to me how stringent Nintendo has been with this. I suppose I understand it, if they were doing something. If they were doing something on their own, like
they're pumping out sheet music books every 6 months or whatever.
Paid all these instrumentalists to get the, flute book, the cello book, the euphonium book, the tin whistle, and, bagpipes.
And I can think specifically too, like I went to the Ballad of the Goddess, which was performed by the Pittsburgh Symphony. And I think like it's kind of a thing that like travels, but that hasn't been done since I think that was like 2017. We went for like a Christmas gift. And I've been to several symphony performances for various events, between just like regular symphony things, for the Ballad of the Goddess, for some of their like Star Wars things. And that Zelda thing was the first time I've ever seen that symphony hall packed.
Yeah, I went to the one in Austin.
Yeah. And I talked to a friend whose first time who went to a symphony was because of something like that. And they're like, wow, I should do this more often. This is really cool. So like people want this. Like people are really looking for this. And the fact that like they make it so difficult, and like we were saying, like there's, we're not competition. They're not putting anything out.
Yeah. And I was going to say, it made me think of, I went to NAMM, it's like a music merchant. It's like a big conference in Anaheim every year for musicians to go and like see all the different music companies, and I met a lady there who she was in charge of contracting the musicians for the New York Comic Cons, orchestra event that they had. And she was saying, I thought it was so interesting, for those events where they do these big orchestra stuff, they're actually funded by the game studios and the composers from those animes and those video games, because they want, literally, they'll pay for very expensive professional level orchestras to perform their music. And so it's just so weird. It's so even more counterculture to me if like everybody else is doing this and like not just allowing it to happen, but paying for it to happen.
Right, and working with the artists and the fans and to have some sort of revenue share, right? Like,
right.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, the whole reason I started working with Music Notes is because they help you get the licenses. So they take, we make pennies. Like, I think I make like $1 per thing sold, because like a lot of the cost of that sheet music is going to pay for the license for that sheet music. So like Nintendo's getting a cut of all of those sheet music sales. And again, it's probably not much, but like, it's not like they're not profiting from it.
They are paid for it. It's all done legally. You know, at least the stuff that we're doing. I'm not saying that people aren't doing stuff and that, you know, they shouldn't do that. But the fact that even us who are doing it legally and have done the right thing and the licenses have been secured. When I started with Music Notes, they told me, they said, please don't give us everything. We have to secure the rights for anything we post on our website. Just be mindful. Things that you think are really popular, you have a lot of requests for, send them to us. And we're not going to like police it. You get to decide, but please don't send us everything. Send us, you know, because they actually do just good faith pay all those licenses and secure them before any of the sheet music's even sold.
Yeah.
And that costs money and time. And so that's why I only have a handful of my arrangements up because of that. If I do something obscure, I know that that's not worth it. I wait till enough people ask, and then I prepare the sheet music and send it off. And so, anyway.
I have a question then. So I know that kind of in talking about this episode and some of the things we plan to talk about, we're talking about like DMCA. If they're securing the licenses, was it Nintendo just saying they just want to shut down this program, not so much because of, you know, copyright violations then in this instance?
I would assume it's just because Nintendo's just like, no, we're done with this.
It wasn't a DMCA technically. It was we have a contract and we are ending with you, Music Notes, and we are ending that contract. So at the date that the contract would have expired or the renegotiation would have happened, because there was a date that the sheet music would be up until and everyone would be paid through that time in the email. And then basically they're like, Nintendo's not renegotiating. And Music Notes said they were going to try, but like it sounded like they weren't open to it anymore. They decided they're not licensing that part of their product anymore.
Which in my opinion is just going to force people to go underground.
Right.
Exactly.
It'll all be illegal at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, what's stopping me from being like, yeah, just make me a donation and then I send someone a PDF. Not saying that I'm going to do that, but like what's stopping for someone to be like, hey, you have sheet music. I'm like, I don't have sheet music. Why don't you donate to my Patreon? And then I just send someone an email. Like how there's no way of tracking that at that point.
Yeah, it's just asking for piracy and it's like they took something that was above board and benefited everyone in the agreement and then made it to where nobody can benefit, it seems like.
Yes.
It's very odd. And I mean, you do see this a lot with them. You see it in other industries with other companies as well, but it is something that has kind of been Nintendo's kind of they have a weird legacy of this, you know? And and I just I'll never quite understand. It's like Nintendo has one of the most loyal, like rabid fan bases, like for all of their IP in the world, you know? And it's like, and creatives, you know, it's like super creative people.
I pretty much exclusively play Nintendo for the most part. Like the Switch is the only operational system that I own right now. My friend Renner guy, who's gone to like every SGDQ, like exclusively plays Ocarina of Time. He's been playing Ocarina of Time since it's come out. He has probably 10,000 hours in that game. Like the people that when they love these games, like that's like people are still playing Ocarina. They're still finding glitches and bugs and like that. I feel like that's the same for a lot of these Nintendo games too. So like people love this company. They love these games. They love these IPs. I mean, I have tattoos from Zelda and from Xenoblade. So like, I mean, I have permanent alterations to my body because of Nintendo.
What else do you want?
My life.
Don't get that sheet music tattooed, though. You get a heap of legal trouble.
Yeah.
And it tells an interesting story, though, when you hear that. And then, like, to prepare for this podcast, I went and, like, I just typed into YouTube, Nintendo hates their fans or whatever, like, to, you know, remind myself of all of the instances and all the history. And it's just like the videos, I mean, they're hilarious, some of them. But, you know, the fact that there's so much there, it tells an interesting story of the diehards and the fact that they don't, it's sad to me.
And I can think of like the Smash community too. Like Nintendo and Smash have been butting heads for years. Mm-hmm. And there's always issues with the Smash community trying to run tournaments and Nintendo shutting it down. And it's just like, people just want to play your game. Like, and people want to play your game with other people.
Building community around your game. And that's how you promote your business, right? Is community. And they keep snuffing it out.
Yeah. Like I have a whole community around people who play Breath of the Wild and we do bingos. And that's what we do. Like I have a little bingo community within my Discord and we do bingos. And it's
this is in your Discord?
This is in my Discord, yeah.
Okay. Got it.
But I mean like
that's
kind of yes, please.
I want to play bingo.
That's how I got into like the speed running. That's how I've met so many of my like good online friends is like through these communities. And it went from like Ocarina of Time to Ocarina of Time bingos and randos to Breath of the Wild bingos. And I made new friends through that because I always say like that's why I like Breath of the Wild. This is a tangent, but like because bingo is so like beginner friendly. You don't have to do glitches. You don't have to do crazy things. Like it's just fun. And that's how we spend time together. And like for Nintendo, just like to fight that at every turn just seems so counterintuitive when like, you know, people spend their lives and their time and their friends and money to see their friends and to go to the conventions and to like people want to spend money on this stuff. Nintendo, let's just shut up and take our money.
I don't see how they benefit.
Yeah, same. I mean, it's free advertising. And I mean, especially in an era where, you know, they're at the top of their game. This is really the golden years of like Nintendo as far as like sales and pure market value is concerned. It's like the Switch is like the most prolific Nintendo console they've ever had. And it's like we talked a lot about the pandemic in 2020 and Animal Crossing. And it's like it crossed a lot of borders there that had not yet been crossed. And so it's like every time that one of these bridges are burned, that's just more potential people that are kind of outside of the hardcore bubble that's going to buy anything anyway, you know, but it's kind of burning the bridges to these other potential markets, right? And so it always seems very short-sighted to me.
Well, yeah, we don't have to go through an exhaustive list like y'all alluded to. This has been happening for a long time. Think about things like the Nintendo Creators Program, which we don't have to get into unless we want to. But I just know that in the last, I don't know, several months doing the news on this show, we've talked about ROM sites getting hit, Vim's Lair, and, you know, sort of the emulation coming to Apple and them being really aggressive around that. Games that you can't legally buy anyway. You know, the Pokemon fan site that like was people making Pokemon fan art, but also like mods and stuff. A bunch of YouTube channels for video game music. You know, we always talk about fan games to get shut down. Talking about speed running at the last GDQ, I think it was the Mario Maker 2 glitch showcase happened.
Oh my gosh, I watched that live. It was so much fun.
Really
and then you can't do those now because
fire.
Nintendo patched that like 2 weeks later, all that stuff that was shown off, which really kind of hurt. I would, and then I don't know. You've got another one on here, David. I don't really know much about.
Do You Know Gaming is a YouTube site that oftentimes talks about a lot of early and rejected Nintendo pitches and stuff that never quite made it off like the cutting room floor. And Nintendo started taking down their videos, like showcasing stuff that never even came out, you know, and it's like, okay, well, you guys are protecting even that never existed. Right. So, there's a lot of crazy stuff. I know just talking about the YouTube channel, like that was pretty devastating, I think. And it's not like you can't find Nintendo VGM like on YouTube. Like that stuff is still out there, right? But it's like a lot of the big dogs that kind of had everything. We're talking about like Silva Gunner, right? Like
Give a Sunner. They already gotcha. Silva Gunner still exists, and that's what's funny.
That's the parody one,
it's
right?
the joke on Give a Sunner, which no longer exists. Correct. Yes.
Right. And it's like these giant like repertoires or reservoirs of like, repositories. I don't know. There's an R word that I can't really fathom right now. But no, it's these, it's because there's no way to play this music. Like I joked about the, turning on Smash and playing the music player on that, but that's like not feasible.
Since you're talking about that reminds me, because like I know a lot of like lo-fi artists who do VGM, and they're like, the second that Nintendo releases like an official Pokemon album, our numbers are going to go down. Mm-hmm. Because like these things are popular because Nintendo doesn't have official releases. Mm-hmm. And like, I mean, technically, probably Xenoblade 3, like our covers probably shouldn't be out there because Nintendo didn't officially release it in the US. But I'm just like, come after me for like the $5 that I've made. But I mean,
exactly.
But the thing is, like, it's hard too because like the Japanese copyright and US copyright are very different. So like, technically, like my cover of Life Sign On could. Like, if I really had the money, I could probably fight Nintendo for it because they didn't officially release it in the US, but I did. If I get sued, I'm going to blame you guys. But
well, no, it's definitely. I'll
blame you because I'm talking about. But like, obviously, like it hasn't been taken down. Like, the Pokemon stuff hasn't been taken down. So like, I'm not worried about it.
Well, no, but it's so nebulous. Like that's what's so confusing and horrible about it, right? It's like, it seems like at any point they can take issue with any particular thing, right? And it's like, why are they putting fans, especially creative fans, in a situation where they like have to be outlaws? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like people want to work with Nintendo. People want to be above board. They want to do rev share. They don't even, it's literally, quite literally for the love of the game, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so I think that going after people as if it's some like get rich quick scheme is like not the way to fucking go, right? And we've got on here as well like a bunch of fan games, and it's like, and nobody's dumb enough to be like, here's a Nintendo fan game and we're selling it for $60. Like all of these things are released for free. All of these things are purely out of like, fandom and respect for the original franchise. And so it's, I don't know. It's very surprising to me, especially given a lot of other companies' stances on this.
Yeah, you think about Sega and Sage and CD Projekt Red, and I just think a lot of companies are a little more open. But why?
Yeah, you talk about Sage, like some of the best Sonic games like that have come out in the past 20 years have been Sonic fan games. Yep. But that has not hurt the sales of official Sonic games when they come out. If anything, it makes them go up. I feel like Sonic is more popular now than he's ever been as a mascot, right?
So I think too, there are a couple of things I want to say, kind of what you were talking about, Katie, a little bit ago, of like legal status of things too. I think it's, and kind of what you were talking about being the little people or whatever. We didn't get into DMCA too much because it wasn't exactly relevant to your situation, but I think there's a lot of times Nintendo sends out these DMCA letters without much ground or, what have you, but because they have the weight, they
have the money to fight anything. And like, if Nintendo sues me, I'm capitulating because I don't have the resources to fight Nintendo. Now, maybe if like word got out, like if there were enough of us that like we could then pull public support, then like maybe. But like for the most part, like I don't have the resources to fight Nintendo. If they tell me to take something down, I'm probably taking it down. I'm going to grumble online and hopefully it gets traction. But like, honestly, you get a letter from Nintendo, like, what are your other options? Unless you have someone that's going to back that kind of legal fee. And that's,
I don't know that the lay person, the person that just loves Nintendo, not the creative, standard consumer really understands or if they heard, if you've made a TikTok, they might just be like, well, it's Nintendo. They do what they want, I don't know that there's going to be a lot of ability. And I think maybe that's the point too.
I think so
too. They have a movie They have a park in California. You know, they are really mainstream now.
Yeah.
I was kind of curious for us to spend just a little bit of time talking about why. Why is Nintendo like this? And I think you hit on something, which is that they are mainstream and that they are interested in attracting and having, lots of casual players, and that's sort of their market and that's sort of their goal. And I don't anything about the Smash community or whatever, all these sort of intense niche communities, like that's not who they're interested in. And it does seem weird that they go after them or don't work with them. And that I'm kind of curious about people's thoughts on, but I think you're hitting on something, which is that like, it isn't affecting their bottom line, right? And it isn't like who they want to be the face, I guess. They want families. I don't know what they want, but I don't know. You have any thoughts on like why?
I don't know if there is a why. It's because they can and they want to protect their IP and they only want officially released Nintendo stuff, but they're not providing a market for it. Like I did a flute convention, so this is like a very classical audience, and like the whole set was songs that you would hear in a video game and you'd be like, yeah, that's a flute. So thanks, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I pulled a lot from that one. Yeah. But I introduced this music to people who've never picked up a video game. And they're like, I want to go listen to this music now. Because I'm like, hey, like gone are the days of like the 8-bit, music. Right. I mean, and that's still great. But like, these companies are hiring real musicians, hiring real orchestras to play this. And I always say like, this is part of my mission of like, video game and anime music is some of the best composed music out there. It rivals Beethoven. It rivals Mozart. I'm tired of like playing the same Mozart concerto. I've gone to so many regular like flute conventions. I'm tired of hearing the same Mozart concerto. Give me something from Nintendo. Give me something from Final Fantasy. Give me something from Nier. I will sing the praises of the composer of all the Nier music. Like this is some of the best composed music of our time. And why are we preventing more people from, even if they don't pick up the game, they'll pick up the CD, they'll pick up the music, they'll buy the digital because they'll love that. They'll just hear. And that's how I started. Like, I've covered quite a few franchises and games and animes that I haven't necessarily played or watched, but I heard the music somewhere and I was like, that's a really cool song. I wonder what I could do with a flute with it. And now, of course, I've covered a lot of Zelda and I've covered a lot of Nier and Xenoblade because that's what I love. I'm working on a Xenoblade album, sneak peek, everyone, because I love the music. But like, I've also covered things that I've never played or probably won't play soon because the music was so good. And I was like, well, I want to introduce my audience to this music too. And even if they don't play the game, they can still enjoy the music.
And it's not pithy music. Just to add here, I went to MagFest this year for my first time, the Music and Gaming Festival, and life-changing experience. Will definitely be there every year that my pocketbook will allow me to. But one of the panels I went to was a very decorated up-and-coming jazz musician, like a master's degree at really big schools on the East Coast. And he was giving his panel on why video game music should be standard jazz studies and
the new jazz standards.
Yeah, because they are, one, they're that good, and two, they're that difficult. And I totally agree. I think that I wish I've learned I've become such a better player the last few years from doing this music than I did before.
And the chord progressions and
I enjoy it so much more. Fun. Yeah. Don't tell Beethoven.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I watched a video by the guy who put on that panel talking about that and seeing some of like the jazz scene in like New York and the kind of jazz clubs and, especially now again that generation has kind of come into the fold of like, hey, we're the ones running the clubs now. So this is what we're going to be playing. And
right? It's the same with classical too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can say that. So I know the assistant principal flute player of the Pittsburgh Symphony. And he had come back to our little flute choir and he was talking and they were doing like a play along with Hocus Pocus. And he's like, the music from Hocus Pocus was some of the most difficult flute music I've ever played. And we're talking about Hocus Pocus. And this is someone who like has a master's and, you know, has auditioned for several orchestras with all of the difficult repertoire that goes into those excerpts and playing. And he's like, yeah, Hocus Pocus was some of the hardest music I've ever played. I think that's telling you that like movies and video games and anime, like this music it's real good music and more people want to listen to it. And Nintendo just released it because people want to consume it.
And I mean, I don't know if you guys mind if I get on a little soapbox for a second.
Please
but I mean,
do.
I'm like, you know, I work in creative fields as well. You know, I work in animation and television shows and stuff like that. And I think, you know, so it's like, I feel like I should be more protective of like IP than I am, but I fucking hate copyright, and I hate I hate how I think IP was a mistake at the end of the day. I think that I think the world works so much better when art and creative output can freely build on what has come before it, right? And obviously people need to be paid for their work. People need to be compensated for their work. Otherwise we wouldn't be able to have careers in creative professions, right? But it's also like pretending like you're not inspired by something that you are because you're worried that you're going to get sued by the thing is like not the play, you know? And I think like, you know, Nintendo is, as far as the copyright system is currently set up, completely within their rights to go after fan creations and stuff like that. I just truly think that the whole idea of copyright as it was originally intended when the first motherfuckers came up with the idea has been completely bastardized, right? You know, originally the idea was like you get 7 years to profit off your work and that's what you get. And then after that, it's public domain and anybody can build on it and anybody can work with it. And that to me is this beautiful way to, and I'm such a remix culture guy, you know what I mean? Like I used to be a DJ like on the radio, and it's like I think there's a reason I was a DJ and not a musician myself, is I like kind of this postmodern taking of things that already exist and making something new out of it, right?
There are some amazing BGM DJs out there too.
Yeah, it's still,
I'm sure.
it's still being
so
a musician.
good.
It's still artistry.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. I mean, I think postmodern art is like my favorite style. Like when you can take something, remix it, turn it, find something new in something that already exists. I find to be so beautiful. And so I think just for me, I'm always going to be on that side of creativity and, you know, and fair use and all that kind of stuff. But I think, you know, if you can then take something that already exists and be able to profit off of it, and then someone else can take your stuff and work off of that. I mean, that's like my utopic vision for music and creativity and all this different kind of stuff.
I just wish they made it easier because I'm happy to pay a license. Like I got a sticker, like it's a little cuckoo that says violence and it says choose violence. And I saw it at Geek Out, like at a vendor. And I was like, can I please license this so I can use it on my Twitch channel? I would love to have this as an emote on my Twitch channel. And they're like, yeah, let me set up a listing. It's like, I think they charged me like $20. And I was like, I will happily license. I will but make it easy. And I think why I didn't get into it sooner before 2018 is like, I thought it was ridiculously difficult. And it still kind of is. It's a little bit easier than people think, but like, I thought it was like you would have to, like, I would have had to contact Nintendo to release a Zelda cover. That's not necessarily the case, but like they don't make it easy. And it's like, I'm happy to pay you. I will pay you a license and tell me what it is. But like, they don't make it easy to do that. And that's where the piracy comes in. Cause I feel like more people are generally honest and will do, and the people who are going to pirate anyway. But like, some people will just pirate because they're like, well, you're making this too difficult. So why bother? I'm just going to do it anyway because what are the chances of you finding me? Sometimes they get away with it. Sometimes they don't. But like, just make it easy. People want to pay you. Just, again, shut up and take my money.
Yeah. And I think to go back to a question you asked, Patrick, about just like, why does Nintendo do this? I think they do it because they can't be bothered to go through that legal red tape or whatever in order to actually figure out ways to make because they had a program, right? They had the Nintendo Creators Program, and I think they just got overwhelmed with the number of people that wanted to do that kind of thing, and they were like, it's easier for us just to shut it all down. You know what I mean? And it's not affecting their bottom line, and so they're like, our investors will be happy, because they're a publicly traded company, right? So it's like I think that it's just for them, it's just a little bit too much for them to even worry about, which is a shame because they could go the other way, which is just turning a blind eye, which would also be very easy. Yeah.
What you bringing up that they had tried it is reminding me that Disney is now in talks, right, of setting up a creator basically feed in Disney Plus that is like, because they can't afford to do enough of their own content to like justify the price of it, right? So, Patrick, you know what I'm talking about?
No, I'm just laughing because
So now they're gonna allow like a creator feed as part of the Disney Plus subscription that they're gonna allow people to basically like YouTube, right? But like if it's Disney content, you get to upload it to Disney Plus.
That's kind of cool. I never heard of that.
Well, I don't want it. Well, I'm on
either.
both sides of this, I guess, because like now I'm wondering, is that what Nintendo is also planning? That they did this thing with music notes that because it was totally legal and you guys were doing everything you needed to do.
Yeah.
Are they going to try it again?
I was going to bring up that I feel like, so that's interesting you said that I feel like, I think about Disney and how protective they are of their IP, how serious they are and how they will go after you. They're very stringent and they have always been. I can't, maybe it exists. Maybe I don't know, but I can't think of a Disney Con or a place that Disney, I know there's like a lot of princesses like reenactment and they go do events and they have like, but I can't think of the way that people identify and like, have fan community with Disney the same way that we do with video games and other pop culture stuff. And so I wondered if Nintendo is like looking at that and saying, well, we don't need that. We don't need to feed this because look at who is, maybe someone who's even bigger. They haven't had to. So that's just really interesting that maybe if they are going back to it, if they are going to allow people to use their IP in some sort of recognized way, that kind of throws me for a loop because that's what I think Nintendo is maybe looking at. Are companies like Disney who don't have those fan community. They do, right? There's
huge diehard
Disney adults, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like
the whole genre of person.
Where do they all get together? I don't know.
There is like one convention. I can't remember what it's called right now.
It's D23.
Thank you, David. Yes. It's Disney and Star Wars, and it only meets every other year. But it's also like officially
it almost feels more like a CinemaCon or like a distributor thing.
Sure, right? It's closer to a Comic-Con where it's very like controlled by them. It's not like how we have. There aren't the same communities that we have in our anime and video game conventions where there's not sponsorships, they're not for profit. There's not that kind of community with Disney, which is what you were saying. Yeah,
and I feel like that's because Disney has not allowed like. You go to school and you have those like movie nights, the fundraiser movie nights. And I remember like we would very rarely ever get a Disney movie. And I like worked in nonprofit after school education and we would try to do that. And we couldn't show any Disney because it was so expensive. They'd let you do it, but they would charge and they'd want you to report on your ticket prices and they'd want a cut of everything. And it's like how the ability to make money for fundraising for after school music program was just like, yeah, we'll choose a different type of movie.
I think Nintendo's controlling in the same way. And we talk about it all the time with more minor things too, just how paternalistic and controlling they are about how you play their games or where you play their games. I think about like, why doesn't Nintendo put all their music on Spotify? Because they can't control Spotify and they don't know what ad is going to play in front of it or, you know what I mean? And I think it's somewhat a weird thing in the culture there. And I don't know why that has is such a part of the culture there, but it's kind of like Disney. It's part of the internal culture.
I will say that something that is not like a good replacement for this necessarily, but something that I love seeing in like the indie game sphere is like, and this is, I'd love to do a whole episode on this. It's just like games that are clear, I don't want to say rip-offs, but it's like indie games that come out for like long, that are like reskinned. They're like DMCA proof versions of like long dormant Nintendo franchises. These like spiritual sequels that are fan indie games, you know? And I love that. And I love how unabashed it is. And I love like how it's like, no, we're not like, there's a game that I'm following, Windswept, that's coming out next year. And it's just Donkey Kong Country, right? But it's like, Nintendo hasn't made a fucking Donkey Kong Country game in over 10 years. It's like, what are we supposed to do? You know, it's like, we want it. We're hungry for it. And I love that they're like not hiding the fact that this is very inspired by Donkey Kong Country, but there's nothing they can do to tag them on it, right? And I think that's such a good thing, you know, to just be like, all right, well, if you guys aren't going to do it, we're going to do it ourselves. And I'll make it to where he's got long ear hair instead of a mustache, but he's basically Mario, you know, and so it's like stuff like that, you know, I think it's good.
And it's like, again, people are going to do that and they're going to skin it in a way that Nintendo can't do anything about it, but it's clear what it is. And it's like, Nintendo, just, you know, work with them, get a licensing or get a cut of the fee. Like, it's just,
it's bizarre.
This is where we go down piracy. Like, and like, that's not piracy, but it is. It is and it isn't. But like, that's what happens when you aren't like willing to work with the people that have such love and dedication to these franchises and these ideas and these thoughts. And like, you know, like I said, like Nintendo just breeds diehard fans. I've been playing Nintendo since I was, you know, 8.
Hopefully some of this changes. I'm not super confident, but I feel like we are at this little bit of a precipice with this new form of Nintendo. You know, some of it, they do seem like they're going a little bit more Disney with the parks and the movies and all this kind of stuff, right? But I do also think that we are seeing now people at Nintendo who grew up playing the stuff, right? Yeah. Who are like now kind of stepping into leadership roles in the company. And I think a lot of this stuff reminds me of 90s litigious Nintendo, right? And I think that it feels like a holdover. So my only optimistic, hopeful note is that like once the kind of guard fully changes over at Nintendo, I think some of that culture shift might happen a little bit more. At least that's my hope. We kind of saw that in the music industry. It's like the music industry had to adapt after Napster. You know, it's like they had to like, you know, they couldn't just keep doing it the way they were, you know, so they had to make things more accessible, more easily viable in an internet age. And I hope we see Nintendo come around to that eventually as well.
Yeah, especially because things are a lot more global than the late 80s and early 90s and even the early 2000s. Things are so much more global and connected. And I think while I still think that there are a lot of really deep rooted cultural ideas in the Japanese culture and in, you know, other cultures as well, but we're talking specifically Nintendo. I think that, like, as you said, as the changing of the guard is coming, that some of that culture might, you know, loosen up a little bit with the new people coming in because they grew up in a very different time than the current, you know, the current heads that are making all of these decisions. Like they grew up in a very different time in a very different world. And, you know, and then generation after that, the new hires now are even a completely different world than, you know, we grew up in as someone who is a millennial. Like, you know, my kids are in a completely different world than now. So in 10 years, it could be very different. And I'm hopeful. I'm hoping that it's very different in a good way. But yeah.
Time will tell.
Well, I think maybe that's a good place to end our conversation on this, unless anybody wants to say one final word.
In 10 years, Koji Kondo will be conducting the orchestra at MagFest.
we hope for that world, too. Well, that'll do it then for our discussion on Nintendo's relationship with its fans making work. We're going to take another short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the games that we've been playing recently. This past week, I played a lot of small Game Jam games from the Game Jam I was a part of. Most recently, the Pursuing Pixels Games Jam, I think was the official name of it. A lot of really cool things. That community, it's called Pursuing Pixels. I joined really just through this game jam because it timed out, but I really like it. It's very indie focused, very dev focused. They have a podcast and do YouTube videos and stuff. And they, I don't know, it's just a really great place. I'm happy to be involved there. It's kind of hard to talk about the individual games, but as these developers, if I stick around, I'll talk more about them. But I also played a lot of Minecraft with my kid, of course. We've been playing in the Nether most recently, and we're just having a blast playing Minecraft. He's making his own mods now, which is fun too. Little things. And then I'm a longtime big Smash Ultimate player. A couple weeks ago, I just picked up Mega Man on a lark in Smash Ultimate, and I'm really enjoying playing as Mega Man. I've been playing a lot of Mega Man online, and I am terrible because I just there's some things that are just fundamentally so different about Mega Man that my score or my online ranking is just tanking, which is fine. I'm trying to find wherever it lands is great, but I'm just still going down.
I can't figure him out, man. I can't do Mega Man.
It's really hard, and it's been fun challenge for me. So I am enjoying losing as Mega Man on Smash Ultimate, and that is mostly what I have been playing recently.
Nice. I'll go real quick. I've mainly been playing 2 games this week. I've been talking about it a lot, but Riven, the sequel to Myst, got a remake that came out last week, and I basically streamed the entire game over the past week, and I completed the game, and I am so in love with this remake. I think I had incredibly high expectations for this. I've been waiting for a remake of Riven, a fan remake or otherwise, for what feels like decades now. And it came out, and my jaw was on the floor pretty much the entire time. I think the game is absolutely gorgeous. And then I don't even want to say what they've changed in it, but there are changes that they made to the game that are like foundational and fundamental in ways that like makes you kind of cringe when you hear about it as someone who's a huge fan of the original game. But it really just adds like so much to the lore, adds so much to the world, adds this whole other element to it that you weren't anticipating at all. And so I don't know, I was completely gobsmacked by this remake. As far as I'm concerned, this is how you do a remake, right? Add to it, improve upon it. Don't like take away what it was that made it so great to begin with, but just like it was just so clearly made with love and respect for the original stuff that I just was completely blown away by this. And I got Cena to play the Myst remake, and now he's playing Riven, and I think he's really enjoying both. So it's not just me. I'm not just a crazy person talking about this franchise. These are really good games. Okay, and then also a game that came out the same fucking day. It was a very overwhelming week for David games. Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble also came out. Another franchise I'm an enormous fan of. And this is just, without question, the best Monkey Ball game since Monkey Ball 1 and 2, right? I think that the franchise after those 2 games took a major drop quality-wise. I think they kind of lost the sauce on like what really made those first 2 games really special. And as far as I'm concerned, this is Super Monkey Ball 3. They brought it back. The level design is impeccable. I'm on top of the moon playing this game. They added a kind of spin dash mechanic, which feels so at home. It's kind of like crazy that it wasn't in the game to begin with. And it's so much better than like the jump button that they added into Banana Blitz, which all that did was kind of rob Monkey Ball of its kind of identity, right? This very much like adds to it. It spices up the mechanic while still feeling very faithful to kind of what the whole idea of what a Monkey Ball game is supposed to be. I will say, if you are a fan of Monkey Ball for the mini games, that I've heard, I haven't even actually touched the multiplayer or any of the mini games. I've only been playing the single player because that's all I care about with the Monkey Ball game personally. But I have heard that it's not as good as previous games as far as the mini games are concerned. So there's definitely a caveat there. But I think if you're a fan of the single player and of the adventure modes and of speed running and that kind of stuff, this game will not disappoint. I'm a huge fan, and I can't wait to play more. Now, especially now that I've finished Riven, I have a lot more time to play Monkey Ball, which is fantastic. And then lastly, really quickly, I'll say I did get a new toy in the mail. I picked up Amberdick RG35XX Graphics SP, which is an emulation device that looks exactly like a Game Boy Advance SP, but it's not. It just is really cute, and it plays everything up to like I think Dreamcast and N64 and PlayStation and stuff like that.
So it can't play Game Boy Advance games.
No, it can. It can. It's in fact, it's got a little bezel on here that's part of like the shaders of the game that really makes it look like it is a Game Boy Advance SP. I love it. But I'm about to go on a trip to New York, and I was very excited to have a clamshell device that can fit in my pocket because I always bring a backpack everywhere because I like to have a game console if I'm going on a train or something like that, right? So I think having something like this, I don't have to bring a backpack around New York. I'm really excited to travel with this thing and talk more about it next time I'm on the podcast. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, well, be prepared. The last time that I flew, I was asked to do a random security check with technology, and I was asked to take a random technological device out of my bag. So I took my 3DS. I said, "Yeah, check this to make sure it's not a bomb." And they swabbed my 3DS and made sure that it wasn't going to blow up, and then I was good to go. Other than Final Fantasy 14 and Fire Emblem Fates, not much to report in those games. Still just chugging along. I downloaded Darkest Dungeon because it was free to play with game trial with NSO this past week. Not a game that I really understood what it was, except I guess people had been telling me that I needed to play this because apparently when I reported, oh, wow, I really like this, I think I'm going to buy this, people were like, yeah, we've been telling you that. This is a game that you, Summer, are going to like. I don't really understand how to describe this game still yet either. It's turn-based. It's kind of like a roguelike, kind of like Fire Emblem. I don't know. It's interesting. It's dark though. I can't play it before bed. Otherwise I will have like icky, bloody dreams. Just be like the narrator too. It's really creepy. Like you got to be in the mood for it. So I'm not going to play it super often, but like the gameplay side of it, I am super into. And then I did play the demo for Rift of the Necromancer. Which, same devs as Crypt of the Necrodancer, because my sister was like, hey, you need to play this demo before it's no longer live. It was live for a very short amount of time. This one might be a little more up my alley because I did play Crypt of the Necrodancer and I enjoyed it, but like it's hard. Not that this isn't hard, but I think this is like maybe a little closer to my style of rhythm games. Plus, Alex Mukala has composed a bunch of songs for it, and I love his work while we're talking about people in the VGM community working on projects. So really excited for the full version of this game to come out.
What about y'all? Anything you've been playing recently you want to talk about?
Sure. So I recently finally finished Baldur's Gate 3, my first run through. And then I also started streaming on Twitch for the first time, really seriously. Mostly doing music streams, but I also started a second run through of Baldur's Gate 3 where I have real dice, and every time a dialogue option comes up, I roll the real dice. And so, like, for example, if you walked up to a portal, the portal would be there, and it'd be like, put your hand in the portal, yell into the portal, or walk away. Like, no one would walk away, but the dice will tell me to walk away. I've caused genocide. I've already expelled 2 major characters from the party, and I'm not even like a quarter of the way through Act 1. Yeah. It's really chaotic. It's been really fun and scary. But I did get the dog, which was the only thing I cared about. I was like, I will quit if we like kill the dog or something. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I'm going to take a couple weeks break to go to LA and play at Anime Expo. And take a family vacation, but then I'll be back to streaming, and I'm excited to see the mayhem that ensues.
That's so stressful. Like, you are so much braver than I am.
It's really stressful. I feel really bad about I'm a paladin, and I got excommunicated from my god, like in like the second session.
That wasn't going to happen.
We were done.
What about you, Katie?
Okay. Well, I started playing the Elden Ring DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. I got 2 bosses in, and that's about as far as I got. My kid was playing before I did, and she came upstairs. She started telling me, I was like, don't say anything. I'm pretty sure she'll have it beaten by the time I get home next week. But honestly, my main game is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. That's what I've been speedrunning. That's what I pretty much stream on Twitch. Between like right now I'm working on all Counting Medals. Like I said, my goal is to get on the leaderboard this year with not the best time, but a decent time. So yeah, I put a lot of hours into Breath of the Wild, but I am bringing back Saturday morning bingo. So if anyone is interested in what a bingo for a video game looks like. Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern is typically when I stream my bingo streams. So yeah, Zelda and a little bit of Elden Ring, but I don't know.
Very
I've
cool.
been itching to get back into Xenoblade 3 because I want to do a Xenoblade album, and I don't need a third playthrough, but I kind of need a third playthrough. So we'll see. But yeah, it's Zelda. I play Zelda. I play the same games over and over. It's Breath of the Wild, Xenoblade 3, and Nier Automata, and those are the 3 games that I usually count on me playing. Why
Very
play
good.
new games when you can play the same ones?
That's going to do it for this episode. Then thank you so much, Katie Shesko and CelloKat, for coming and joining us today. We really appreciate it. Thanks to MilkyWay.co, who does our website. Thanks to Corduroy, who does our music. Thank you to all our patrons over on Patreon. If you're looking for me, Patrick, you can find me online most places as PDYX.
You can find me at Weebwitched.
I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about the two of you? Where can people find you online?
CelloKat on Instagram, TikTok, it's cello with an _cat. Everywhere else, it's just CelloKat.
And pretty much Katie Shesko on everything. So yeah, come check out my Twitch streams. Come play bingos with me. I want more people to play.
Absolutely going to come play bingo.
You guys both have YouTube channels where you post a lot of
Yeah.
your music as well, right?
Yeah.
So the same
Katie
handles there as
Shesko,
well?
yeah, CelloKat.
CelloKat, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, Instagram,
Yeah.
Twitch.
Anywhere
Great.
you want to stream music, you can find CelloKat, you can find Katie Shesko. We've done some stuff together, so definitely
Nice.
check those out. We may or may not have, but definitely do have another collab coming out in the next month or two.
Very good. Breaking
but
news.
yeah,
Make sure you check those out. Support the artists here in the video game music community. If you'd like to find our show online, we are at Switchheads on Twitter, at Super Switchheads on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We got a website, switchheads.com, and we have a Patreon, Discord, and Facebook group. We'll have links to the 3 of those in the description of this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or any of these other podcasting platforms. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with your friends, especially if your friends are musicians and want to hear some about the inner workings of the video game music community and hate copyright. That's good. Anyway,
angrily
that's good.
first.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to do it for this episode. We're going to be back next week with another banger. So don't touch that dial. But in the meantime, gang, you know the drill. Stay safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. Let's all just start writing a bunch of sheet music down and sending it out to anyone who needs it. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys next week. We love you very much. Bye-bye.